Hi, I'm Gail. Thank you for joining me on the Secular Scriptures. Today's reading is Genesis chapter 32 and 33 from the World English Bible, where Jacob plays favorites, wrestles with someone all night, and then makes up with his twin brother in the morning. This thing, honestly, is a real snooze fest, and it's also known as an anticlimax. They can't all be edge-of-your-seat, three-count winners with a bell and cheering at the end. But do stay for some history, literary analysis, comparative mythology, and conflicts, contradictions, and controversies. We may salvage this featherweight match of a tale if we wrestle it to the ground and refuse to let it go until it blesses us. Hopefully not with a lifelong limp, because that's some blessing there, Yahweh. Thanks. I am not a biblical scholar. I just love these stories, though today that's debatable. Grab your favorite tall, handsome beverage by the hip joint, and hopefully at the end of this, everyone will still feel like hugging, or maybe we'll be crying. I don't know. Let's get into it. Genesis chapter 32. Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When he saw them, Jacob said, "This is God's army." He called the name of the place Mahanaim, which means two camps. Jacob sent messengers in front of him to Esau his brother to the land of Seir, the field of Edom. He commanded them, saying, "This is what you shall tell my lord Esau. This is what your servant Jacob says. I have lived as a foreigner with Laban and stayed until now. I have cattle, donkeys, flocks, male servants, and female servants. I have sent to tell my lord that I may find favor in your sight." The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau. He is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." Then Jacob was greatly afraid and was distressed. He divided the people who were with him, along with the flocks, the herds, and the camels, into two companies. He said, "If Esau comes to the one company and strikes it, then the company which is left will escape." Jacob said, "God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, Yahweh, who said to me, 'Return to your country and to your relatives, and I will do you good.' I am not worthy of the least of all the loving kindness and all of the truth which you have shown your servant. For with just my staff I crossed over this Jordan, and now I have become two companies. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and strike me and the mothers with the children." You said, "I will surely do you good and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which can't be counted because there are so many." He stayed there that night and took from that which he had with him a present for Esau his brother, 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milk camels and their colts, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, 10 foals. He delivered them into the hands of his servants, every herd by itself, and said to his servants, "Pass over before me, and put a space between herd and herd." He commanded the foremost, saying, "When Esau my brother meets you, and asks you, saying, 'Whose are you? Where are you going? Whose are these before you?' then you shall say, 'They are your servant Jacob's. It is a present sent to my lord Esau. Behold, he is also behind us.'" He commanded also the second and the third, and all that followed the herd, saying, "This is how you shall speak to Esau when you find him. You shall say, 'Not only that, but behold, your servant Jacob is behind us.' For he said, 'I will appease him with the present that goes before me, and afterward I will see his face. Perhaps he will accept me.' So the present passed over before him, and he himself stayed that night in camp. He rose up that night, and took his 2 wives and his 2 servants and his 11 sons, and crossed over the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them over the stream, and sent over that which he had. Jacob was left alone, and wrestled with a man there until the breaking of the day. When he saw that he didn't prevail against him, the man touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was strained as he wrestled. The man said, "Let go, for the day breaks." Jacob said, "I won't let you go unless you bless me." He said to him, "What is your name?" He said, "Jacob." He said, "Your name will no longer be called Jacob but Israel, for you have fought with God and with men and have prevailed." Jacob asked him, "But please tell me your name." He said, "Why is it that you ask what my name is?" So he blessed him there. Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, which means face of God, for he said, "I've seen God face to face, and my life is preserved." The sun rose on him as he passed over Peniel, and he limped because of his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel don't eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the hollow of the thigh to this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh in the sinew of the hip. Chapter 33. Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and with him 400 men. He divided the children between Leah, Rachel, and the 2 servants. He put the servants and their children in front, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph at the rear. He himself passed over in front of them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came nearer to his brother. Esau ran to meet him, embraced him, and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. He lifted up his eyes, and he saw the women and the children, and he said, "Who are these with you?" He said, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." Then the servants came near with their children, and they bowed themselves. Leah also and her children came near and bowed themselves. After them Joseph came near with Rachel, and they bowed themselves. Esau said, What do you mean by all this company which I met?" Jacob said, "To find favor in the sight of my Lord." Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Let that which you have be yours." Jacob said, "Please, no, I have now found favor in your sight. Then receive my present at my hand, because I have seen your face, as one sees the face of God, and you were pleased with me. Please take the gift that I brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough." He urged him, and he took it. Esau said, "Let's take our journey, and let's go, and I will go before you." Jacob said to him, "My Lord knows that the children are tender, and that the flocks and herds with me have their young, and if they overdrive them one day, all the flocks will die. Please let my Lord pass over before his servant, and I will lead on gently according to the pace of the livestock that are before me, and according to the pace of the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir." Esau said, "Let me now leave with you some of the people who are with me." He said, "Why? Let me find favor in the sight of my Lord." So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. Jacob traveled to Succoth, built himself a house, and made shelters for his livestock. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. Succoth means shelter or booths. Jacob came in peace to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padan Aram and encamped before the city. He bought the parcel of ground where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. He erected an altar there and called it El Elohe Israel, which means God, the God of Israel, or the God of Israel is mighty. Okay, I'm trying really hard not to just fall asleep here. After the rather thrilling sheep trickery and midnight escape from last time, 2 decades of tension building turned out to be a big old pile of nothing burgers. Aside from acquiring a bum leg and making up with his brother, not much happens, except a lot happens in terms of theology and character growth. The question is, do I care? Do you care? Can we pull some decent stuff out of this? Stick with me. Let's make it sweet. History of the text. Like most of Genesis, this part of the story is stitched together between the Yahwist and Elohist sources, combining the southern and northern kingdom traditions from the 9th and 8th centuries BCE, respectively and debatably. Literary analysis. Characters in order of appearance. In chapter 32, we have Jacob/Israel, because he gets a new name. The angels of God, messengers, cattle, donkeys, flocks, male and female servants, 4 wives, 11 children, camels. Did I already say camels? Camels, goats, ewes and rams, cows, bulls, a man, or an angel, or potentially God, in a speaking role. In chapter 33, we have Jacob and Esau in speaking roles, and 400 men. Try shoving that on a stage. 11 children. Leah, Rachel, 2 servants, and the children of Hamor, Shechem's father. Setting. The story takes place on either side of the Jabbok in a place also called Peniel. I think that's how you say that. And then to Succoth and Jacob's camp outside of the city of Shechem, where he buys some land. Point of view and style. The story is told in the prose narrative style from the third-person limited point of view, with only Jacob's thoughts and feelings being highlighted in this section. Plot summary. Jacob, his wives, kiddos, slaves, and all their livestock are moseying along back to Canaan when Jake sees the army of God camped in a valley, and so he pitches their tents by the river and sends a good old critter bribe to brother Esau, hoping to buy his forgiveness. Since he doesn't trust his twin as far as he can monkey flip an angel, gaining a bum hip and a new name for this WWE-style victory, he divides the fam according to his affection, so the ones he loves most can hightail it out of there if Big Bro goes all Mortal Kombat on his least favorite kiddos first. Thanks, Dad. I guess you know where you stand, right? Things go quite well, though, and there is much kissing, hugging, crying, and forgiveness, though Jacob does not, in fact, follow Esau to Seir. Instead, he wanders off in a different direction for reasons. and build some sheep pens, and then buy some land in a different place, and that's it. Don't worry, folks, the fam will F it up soon. Literary devices. Etiology. Or maybe don't eat theology. Har har har. Genesis 32:32, we get, therefore, to this day the sons of Israel do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of Jacob's thigh in the sinew of the hip. And here I thought it was just because sinew tastes like crap and it's hard to chew. But this is an example of how Israel is set apart in their culinary traditions and another custom that is done in remembrance of a certain event or lesson. Tension! This is the first time we have tension as a literary device. The feeling of suspense, uncertainty, or anticipation created by conflicting forces within a literary work. After running from and fearing Esau for 20 years, Jacob is preparing for a battle that never comes. He sends gifts to appease Esau. He splits his family up and puts distance between them in case of an attack. He prepares for battle alone and ends up wrestling with God all night, only for all of that fear and anxiety to evaporate when his twin embraces him the next day. Which brings us to the concept of a bait and switch. This is a narrative technique where the author leads the audience to expect one thing and then intentionally delivers something different. Esau is the big bad evil guy in this tale. He's the hunter, the brigand, the big dumb fool who is impulsive, gets angry, and makes bad decisions. But through the loss of his brother, he learns to be a better person. Just like Jacob learns to be a better person through loving his own family. Both Jacob and the reader are expecting Esau to be this horrible, violent monster, and Esau just missed his twin brother. There is something precious here that gets lost in later stories, which insist on perpetuating the fear and tension of big bad Esau, instead of focusing on the reality of who Esau actually is, and of his act of unconditional forgiveness. More on that later. Outside of that, and after the story, we have Allegory, where the brothers become symbols for their descendants, with Jacob variously being the nations of Israel and Judah, and Esau representing Edom, everyone else, and interestingly, Rome? In a fun flip later on, early Christians identify with Jacob and associated their Jewish older brother with Esau. There is an obvious literary connection between Esau and Jesus, where Esau serves as a prototype for Jesus and his capacity for forgiveness, but also where Jesus and Esau are connected in ways that are not so polite, and Jesus takes on the symbolic role of big bad scary boogeyman. Comparative mythology! This is a Japanese folktale called The Bridge of Forgiveness. Two brothers had adjoining farms. For years they worked in peace with complete cooperation, sharing tools, providing mutual support, and helping wherever needed. But they fell into conflict once, and the rift began to increase over the years. There was an exchange of bitter, spiteful words, followed by a prolonged hostile silence. This went on for years. One day a carpenter turned up at the door of the older brother. "I am looking for work," he said. "I've traveled for days in search of work. I will be grateful if you can assign me something to do for you. I am very skilled, and I have all my tools with me." The brother thought for a while, and an idea flashed in his mind. "My brother's farm is next to mine," he told the carpenter. "A creek runs between our farms. You see, we don't get along anymore, and I want you to build a fence, at least 8 feet high, over the edge of my farm. That way my brother cannot think of making any mischief to harm my farm. You may use the pile of lumber laying by my barn. Make it nice and strong. I will come in the evening to check on your progress." "I think I understand your problem," said the carpenter. "I will do my best." The carpenter went to work. Whenever the older brother checked on him, he saw the carpenter hard at work. He was happy and satisfied. But a few days later, when the farmer went back to check on how the work was progressing, he was in for a surprise. The work was nearly finished, but it was not what he had asked of the carpenter. Instead of building a fence, the carpenter had built a bridge between the two farms. When the younger brother saw this, he was overcome with remorse. He came over to the older brother and embraced him. "I am so sorry," he said to him. "By building this bridge, you showed me you have a bigger heart." The older brother had tears in his eyes. He thanked the carpenter for his work. "I think my work here is done," said the carpenter, smiling as he gathered his tools. "But I have some more work for you," said the older brother. "I am sorry," said the carpenter. "I must be on my way now. There are many more bridges to build." Conflicts, contradictions, and controversies. I actually only have 2 of them for you today. Contradictions in the text. Esau is repeatedly framed as the bad guy, and sometimes he is, but he's never in that role unprovoked. He self-corrects once he sees the error of his ways, and he forgives even if forgiveness isn't necessarily deserved. Later writings demonize him further, but in this story we see a character who grows and does better over time. We see a man who is blessed, happy, has enough, and loves his family. We do not see a man who God hated, despite what later biblical writers claim. And that's going back to the allegory of Esau as a representative of his descendants, not he himself as an individual man. Under controversies, why do later biblical writings need Esau to be the big bad evil guy? Maybe that should go under questions, but I think it's important to take that thought forward, especially when we get into Exodus and Numbers, and we see the interaction between Israel and Edom. I almost feel like apologizing for not exploring that here, but let's just stick a pin in it for later. A big part of me wants to get all mushy about the lesson here of just talking out your problems instead of running away from them, but that's not how life works. Life is messy, and sometimes people need a decade or 2 to sort out their differences. For channel recommendations, as always, for the Jacob story arc, I recommend FPC Spirit Lake and Jennifer Bird, PhD. Both have great takes on this tale, even if they are a bit of a polar opposite there. I have a lot of questions for you. This is more of a writing prompt than a question, but tell me how Esau and Jacob grow as characters from their conception in chapter 25, verse 21, until the end of chapter 33, when they part ways. How do Jacob and Esau compare to other brothers in the story so far, like Cain and Abel or Ishmael and Isaac? How are they the same? How are they different? Do we see a moral progression in their interactions? What does the story say versus what your church says? Do both the prophecy that God gave to Rebekah and the blessings from Isaac come true for the twins individually? Do we see these things come to pass in the text, or do they have to be shoehorned in through apologetics? Obviously, we are in the middle of the story, not at the end, so this is a thing to watch for. How do Rebekah's words play out? She didn't lose Jacob and Isaac in the same day, but she did lose Jacob forever. She never sees him again. I know I didn't address the angelic wrestling match outside of a few jokes, but to be honest, I just didn't feel like it. That's something that you can contemplate on your own. Thank you so much for joining me on the Secular Scriptures. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, do the bell thing so you don't miss Genesis chapter 34 and 35, defiling Dinah and the death of Isaac, because that's going to be a discussion.